And that's why good players are the best players. The best players are able to self-reflect. They are able to figure out what they can do better, and they're able to come back in a healthy way and be better the next time they're at it.
We are down to just 4 teams remaining in the LCS Spring Split. One of them is going home after this weekend, and one of them is punching their ticket to MSI. Let's kick off the pit. The best way to cover this past week's matches is probably actually to do the in memoriam and say goodbye to the 2 teams that are going home. First and foremost, after beating NRG pretty handily, you kind of assume that Dignitas might be able to put up a fight against whoever they played, assuming Team Liquid was the one that they would be playing, which they did end up facing them, as Team Liquid would beat Flyquest in a very close 5-game series, setting up this potential of like, okay, well, maybe Dig can step it up. They look pretty good on that Jinx comp that we saw in the tiebreaker, but no. They officially finish 5th, 6th, and honestly, I don't think you can be all that upset if you're a Dig fan. Coming into the split, you were looking for building blocks that would set you up for future splits. This was never a roster that was going to win the LCS. I'm sorry, it just wasn't. And I think you did exactly that. You have building blocks in both jungle and bot and support that I think you're actually really good to build around. Now, Rich is the one that I'm looking at saying, okay, he had a pretty steep drop off. I remember last spring people were really hyped. In summer he started to fall off a little bit, and then now like it feels even more so. Honestly, I'm all for a roster sticking together, but I don't see a chance where this roster, like in its current form, at least with the form that Rich is playing, getting to the point where they can go to Worlds, given that only 3 teams make it. Even if the bot lane does grow and XU continues to evolve into this in-game leader, I'm still looking at like Dig being one of those teams that's going to be fighting for Licorice in the offseason. Dove, I think you saw a mixed bag from him. I saw enough signs that like you want to try and keep him around, but the main reason why he came in was apparently because he was decent friends with Rich in the first place. So, under the assumption that you get Licorice over Rich, then I don't know. But Dove had his moments. I don't want to say it was all negative. Another guy where I could see him growing as the year goes on, maybe. But overall, Dig finished, I'd say it's slightly above where people thought they would be, although bombing out of playoffs in a manner which they pretty much expected. From second place in most people's power rankings, some first, to 5th, 6th, and not looking good. Something is wrong with NRG, plain and simple, and I don't expect everything to remain exactly as is going into summer. This is an implosion that we haven't seen since, well, I guess Golden Guardians last year. But even then, this is like one of the longest standing roster cores in the LCS. The coaching staff didn't change. It minimized slightly with DeMonte and some of the positional coaches leaving, the general manager departing. But I hate to say that this gives a little bit of credence to those calling NRG's win last summer a fluke. No win in the LCS is ever a fluke, but when you fall off this hard afterwards, it does bring questions. Notably with 100 Thieves, the other one that people tend to call a fluke. They still got second the splits afterwards. So it's not like they weren't competing. They were still at that level the entire time. This is just a complete drop off to where they were at the end of summer. And I got the chance to talk to Thinkcard to reflect on not only the series with 100 Thieves, but also the season as a whole, as they're officially done until summer.
I think 100 Thieves played well. I think they're a very exciting team to watch, and I'm excited to see how they're going to do in the rest of the playoffs and just their growth overall. They had a very good plan going into the spring split, and let's see how far they go. But overall, like, I am 100% a fan of what they're doing in terms of pairing up rookies with some veterans and getting some development in the league. And so I do wish them success for the rest of the playoffs.
I was going to say, it's a formula that you guys patent and pended first time around. So a little bit of credit definitely gets to go your way. They showed you pretty consistently throughout the series in the coach's room, kind of going through the emotion of the series. You very much wear your heart on your sleeve, which I think everybody and their mother appreciates. What's it like back there, like watching the series play out, obviously hearing the comms, but like how bad are the nerves relative to what fans experience, just not being able to control anything, but just having to watch it?
It's pretty intense for sure, just because I know once the champions are locked in, I don't have any power. It's all up to the players, and I get to hear kind of their plans that they're forming ahead of time. And so I kind of already know whether it's going to go well or badly before it happens, because I can tell what they're talking about. So Yeah, a lot of the games were pretty nerve wracking. I do think that like heading from game 4 to game 5, we I mean, I felt like we were going to win. I thought that we were communicating really well again. At the beginning of game 5, we were in control most of the way. And then we had a very bad fight selection when we were just very confident we were going to win no matter what. And that was the game. So it sucks, but I think when you make that many mistakes, you don't really deserve to go to the next round of playoffs.
I know the biggest question that a lot of people have going from game 4 to game 5. Smolder is left open for you guys to pick. You opt for Zeri instead of Smolder. I guess just why? And do you think that last game would have been different in hindsight had Smolder been picked?
Maybe we would have been less inclined to take that fight if we had Smolder, but the Zeri pick did get like a 20 to 30 CS lead in lane. He was able to agree for a call and proc the call very early in the game. So I think the Zeri pressure did get us an early dragon, some grubs, a very big lead, and we were basically going to be able to fight every objective with a tempo advantage because of the Zeri. So it would have been a different game for sure, but I think the Zeri pick is quite good in that situation. We just need to play accordingly and not fight when we don't have ultimate abilities.
Kind of reflecting on the entire split. Bit of an up and down one for you guys. Started off a little bit shaky, kind of ramped up a little bit, but then kind of, I guess, just ebbs and flows throughout the entire season for the most part. Despite the outcome, what's one thing that you're most proud of walking away from this split?
I'm proud of the way that the players handled the dark times because, yeah, I think the first 4 games we lost in a row, it's very easy to kind of check out and start getting frustrated, blame your teammates, not really look inward. But we had very tough conversations, and overall, our practice did get a ton better, and we started to get good scrim results, especially the last few weeks of practice. So I am proud of the effort that the guys put in. It sucks that we weren't able to make it click on stage.
Going into the off season now, any particular plans for yourself, for the team? I know it's probably not something you guys have thought about yet, but given that there's this giant cloud of nobody knows what's going on fully yet with summer, uh, any plans to try and go over during MSI still?
Probably not. I mean, it's a long time, so I'm probably going to get really bored. Maybe I'll just start coaching like amateur players again and kind of making sure that my coaching is still like on point when the next split starts. But maybe we'll start scrims earlier than other teams as well, so that we're stronger in the early parts of the season. But as of right now, it's. I mean, I told the players this too. It's gonna feel bad, and it's you feel bad because you care. It's an important thing, and you're not gonna be successful all the time. But we need to, let ourselves feel bad, double down, and figure out why we weren't successful this split, and be better next split. And that's why good players are the best players. The best players are able to self-reflect. They are able to figure out what they can do better, and they're able to come back in a healthy way and be better the next time they're at it.
Final thing I got for you. You had a lot of fan cheer in the stadium today, and just in general online. Seems like the fandom's really starting to grow for NRG. Any message you want to get out there for them is, they're looking for something to grab onto going into the next split.
Yeah, I think we were not successful this split. I'm sorry about that. We are going to do everything in our power to do better next split and kind of regain what we were able to do just over the last few years. So if there's anything that we know how to do, it's improve split to split, and we missed the mark on this one, but next split we will get it right.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for taking this interview. Now, before we get into previewing this upcoming weekend set of matches, first, we got some LCS news to talk about. Viewership for this past weekend's games was really damn good, which you kind of expect this series to have more time to evolve and gives more credence again to not doing best of ones because these series can develop storylines within them. The trash talk between APA and Flyquest was great. Clearly, the 5-game series between 100 Thieves and NRG popped off for a lot of people. It was a good time, and I'm glad to see these numbers doing well. I'm curious to see how we do this weekend, given that we don't have multiple days of lead in. It's literally just Friday and Saturday. And as you can see by the numbers, the weekday games like Friday are nowhere near what weekends are, let alone the fact that Thursday isn't even on this list. But we'll see. It's a really good sign. Like, this should be positive for a lot of people. Let's hope we close out the year strong. Speaking of closing out the year, again, we have a watch party for LCS Finals here in New York City. It is free to attend. Be sure to check out the Eventbrite in the description down below if you need a little bit more information on the location and everything else. I don't want to beat this to a pulp. Just know, yes, LCS Finals here in New York City. If you're in the East Coast, come on by. On the East Coast. What? In what? And finally, the first bombshell of the offseason, which has not even begun yet, happened yesterday as Immortals fired their head coach Sharks, who was brought in under the assumption that he was going to build a 2-year plan with Immortals. They unfortunately finished last again, and it just raises so many questions about Immortals' decision making that I just will never understand. The background behind this is Digon catches wind of it, lets Immortals know. Immortals puts out their graphic saying, hey, he's gone, bye-bye. No explanation, no nothing. They just wanted to beat Digon to it, but in turn they shot themselves in the foot because the narrative entirely, because they didn't say a single word about it. They didn't do a sit down with Digon or anything that you typically see. Like, no, they just straight up released it, and we're all left to say, okay, Immortals finishes last, they fire their head coach again. Now, obviously, there's probably more to this. There's probably internal conflict between coaching staff and players. Management decides to go with players instead of the coach, but we don't know. There's no context. There's nothing given. So the only thing that we can go on from the outside in is just the assumption of, oh, Immortals finishes last again. Yeah, they're firing their head coach because it's the 4th one in 4 years. It's like, what are we doing, people? Come on. We're better than this. It's just sloppy IMT. It really is. Get it together. Now for the important part. Our 2 series that we have this weekend. First, the elimination game between 100 Thieves and Team Liquid. I spent a long amount of time talking about this series in depth in its own video. I'll just touch on some of the highlights here. I do think that top lane is going to be the most important lane to watch. Impact notably steps up in playoffs, as we've already seen from this past weekend. So I'm looking to see him versus Sniper. Sniper's not going to get any solo kills on him this time around, at least I don't think. And Sniper's going to need to level up his game to get to where Impact's is so that he can have the same level of impact in the series. I'm sorry. This is also Quid's revenge series, as he notably got knocked out in playoffs last summer by APA and Team Liquid, who ended up going to Worlds, as 100 Thieves ended up changing the entire team around Quid after the whole double F roster kind of imploded. Speaking of bot lane, though, for 100 Thieves, they just got to hold on because Team Liquid's looking like the best bot lane in the entire league. Yawn is performing at an insanely high level. Core JJ is playing the same way he always does come this time of year, so it is going to be tough for them. Just hold on, let mid and jungle get their priority that I'm fully expecting them to have, and go from there. If you're Team Liquid, smash that bot lane and let Impact do his thing. As long as mid and jungle hold their own against Quid and River, who have the tempo advantage on them, then yeah, Team Liquid has a chance in this one, but obviously go 100 Thieves. The upper bracket finals sees Cloud9 go against Flyquest for a spot at MSI and a spot in finals. Now, I'm going to be a little bit biased in this one because Flyquest is helping partner and sponsor our watch party here in New York City. I kind of want to see them in finals. But the thing is, I already know community perception. Everybody is going to see their series go to 5 games with Team Liquid and be like, oh, really? They're struggling against them? That's not good. And then they look at the Cloud9 series against 100 Thieves where they 3-0 them and say, ooh, Cloud9 looks really good. Yeah, this ain't going to be a close series. I'm calling BS on that. We saw Flyquest, in my opinion, at their worst that they're probably going to be in a best of 5 in that series against Team Liquid. And we saw 100 Thieves at their worst in that series against Cloud9 that we will probably see them all playoffs. So you're taking C9 at their best and Flyquest at their worst and just putting them in a 1v1 cage match. And like, that's not what's actually going to happen. Flyquest will likely elevate their play to C9's level. C9 will not be able to get away with the things that they got away with against 100 Thieves in this series. It is going to be a lot closer than people give it credit for, and I'm hoping it goes the full 5 games. Vulcan still has these moments where he's out of position, and Cloud9's drafts definitely can still be a little bit interesting. Even in the 3-0 against 100 Thieves, I felt like a team that was more there on the day could have taken advantage of some of those drafts, and I think Flyquest could do exactly that. The keys to victory for Cloud9 here, the same as they've always been. Let Fudge do his thing against Blippo, which I don't think he'll be able to get the same level of dominance that Fudge had against Sniper. But what I do think is I do think this bot lane for Cloud9 has the potential to just utterly stomp Flyquest. Flyquest is a very coin flip bot lane, and if there's one thing we know about Berserker in playoffs is that he is ever so consistent. And he's already shown that in his past series. Berserker's not going to be able to get the same leads against Masu that he probably was able to get against Meech, unless Masu has one of those days where it just doesn't work out well, but Masu tends to recover very quickly. I just see this bot lane being Cloud9 favored pretty handedly. But the mid lane is where like all eyes should be on them this series. Like up until like 30 minutes when it comes time to carry the game for the ADCs, and even then if Jojo Pune's on Nico, he still gets my first eye. Jensen has been criminally underrated this split. He has popped off in almost every single series, every single best of one that we've seen. He's gone deathless in many of them. In their series against Team Liquid, he was still performing incredibly well against APA, who people were saying was having a bad series. Well, that's in part because Jensen was applying pressure to him. And I think APA got into Jensen's head just a little bit during that series, which he's not going to have to worry about as much with Jojo Pune. Jojo Pune does not talk the same level of trash that APA does. But Jojo Pune, on the other hand, will put up a fight. Like a very difficult fight. Coming into this past week's games, Quid was seen as the de facto best mid laner in the league, and Jojo Pune solo killed him twice in game 1. Quid bounced back and was able to hang on a little bit more in lane and actually go even with him. But Jojo Pune just kept having pop-off play after pop-off play, and he's been doing this for like 3 or 4 weeks now, where it's just like, you think that he's not going to be able to find another Nico angle, and yet here he is doing it again. Or a Talia knockback. Like, you name it, Jojo Pune's just hitting him. He's clicking like that. But Jensen historically is a player that shuts down high-impact players. He neutralizes them and allows other lanes and other people to pop off, even though this split he's had a few pop-off games himself. So, this is a real test. Can Jojo Pune keep his foot on the throttle? Can he allow Blabber to take over the map with the pressure that he's generating mid lane? Or will Jensen be able to neutralize it and will Inspire mastermind his way around the jungle again? I don't know. It's going to be an incredibly close series. I personally want to see Cloud9 in the losers bracket. They just have never kind of been in that position over the last 2 years. They keep getting to finals from winners finals, so I want to see them face some adversity and have to bounce back from a best of 5 loss against either TL or 100 Thieves. But I think if they do, oh man, we're in for a good one. But that's all for me. Thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to drop a comment down below. Who do you think is going to be player of the week this week? Who's going to have the biggest pop-off series out of any of the 20 players that hit the Rift this weekend? Let me know, and I'll see you in the live views live on Twitch. Adios.